When Pete Zanardi and Bruce Cohen called me, I graciously said, oh, I will accept introducing our next inductee, Stan Greger. I began to realize, boy, in 40 years of covering racing, I haven't talked to Stan too many times. So I called him up, and we met at the Olympia Diner on the Berlin Turnpike, a great eatery. Spent about 40 minutes talking. I don't wait long to do these things. I do them right away. I met with him last Tuesday. And then I sat down yesterday afternoon, again, I don't wait long to do these things, and put this together. Anyone who has spent time driving throughout the south central part of Connecticut has no doubt either gone into or has traveled close to the town of Southington. What you will find there is a mix of new and older homes. It's definitely an area where the transformation has taken place. It's a typical bedroom community where people growing up in neighboring New Britain, or perhaps from the farther away city of Waterbury, or even Hartford, moved into in order to seek out a better life. When you narrow it down even farther to focus on racing people, the name that instantly pops into your head is Ed Lemke Sr., whose exploits in modified racing here in the Northeast are comparable to Richard Petty's or Dale Earnhardt's in North Carolina. Lemke was a member of the Eastern Bandits, a winner of close to 500 features, and a teacher to a generation of drivers who came along after him. Our next inductee, Stan Greger, grew up in the same town. And if you did that and lived there in the 1960s and 1970s, and you were all interested in racing, then the nearby Plainville Stadium drew you in like a moth to an enticing flame. Plainville was a true quarter-mile bull ring, which became known as a racetrack with a drive-in theater screen visible as you raced down the backstretch. At age 13, Greger made his first visit with a couple of friends and their parents. His early reverence toward the sport should be noted here. He wore a nice tie, a nice pair of pants, and a clean shirt. It didn't take a long time to get me hooked, Greger said. Right down the street from where we lived, there was a four-bay car garage. All four bays were filled at times with novice race cars. All of their drivers competed at Plainville. Early on, crew members from that same group snuck Greger into the pits at Plainville in a time when children and women were strictly forbidden from what was considered hallowed ground. It took only a few more years, once in which Greger grew up and got through his teenage years, before the racing bug morphed from dream into reality. Greger first hit the racing surface in 1969, driving a home-built late model at the small track at Thompson Speedway. 2 years later, in 1971, he became a 22-year-old battling veterans of the era. Guys like Dave Elkis, Ron Van Ness, Roland Sear, and Tony Jap Membrino rarely gave a newcomer racing room, Plainville. If I had one word, and one word only, to describe Stan Greger, said Bones Bercier, a writer of, ironically, many words, it would be smooth. Stanley was like that in a race car, but in order to compete against drivers, first at Plainville and then at Riverside Park, you had to be aggressive. Stanley fit somewhere in the middle. He was an underdog in an era when big-name drivers. He came along with Reggie Ruggiero, and shortly after that, Ronnie Rocco was on the scene. These younger drivers were always running in lockstep with the older guys. Those are all quotes from Bones. Stanley's stay at Plainville ended after the 1974 season. He won Rookie of the Year honors in 1971 and was polishing his skills with car owners like Don Wimpy Kenny and Ron Byrne. You would either win, run close enough to almost win, survive, or wreck at Plainville, Greger said. I might hold one distinction there. I rolled the car violently on both the front stretch and the back stretch. The one on the back stretch was the worst. The roll cage crushed and fuel was leaking everywhere. People told me that I had stayed in the car. To this day, I still think I got out and ran into the infield. In his first season at Riverside in 1975, Greger teamed with Charlie Glazier, the 1974 points champ, for his first Riverside 500 team race while driving for Rich Bedoin in those famous number 500 cars. On a sweltering June night, Glazier hit the backstretch wall just 20 laps in. Greger, without the benefit of power steering, ran the next 480 circuits. In the exchange of drivers during that time, the team was penalized a lap. Bob Pulvereri, who teamed with Ronnie Wyckoff, both Hall of Fame members, took the checkers. Glazier and Greger, thinking they had won, filed a protest. 4 days later, the verdict, and the win still went to Pulvereri and Wyckoff. It was the start of a long career for Greger at the park, where he raced both full and part-time. His 38 career wins rank him fourth on the all-time list. Along the way, he ran cars for Billy Simons, Bill Pelly, Ben Dodge, Kurt Chase, Billy Carrazzo at Sherry Cup, Joe Brady, and finally with Bob Judkins. Accounting for wins with most drivers is a difficult thing to do, but we figured Stan's totals are somewhere between 75 and 100 wins. And he did win 3 track titles. They were all at Riverside Park. They came in 1978, 1981, and 1983. He won for Ben Dodge at Stafford, for Chase at Monadnock, including the Whitcomb 100 race, a very prestigious event, and drove Simon's cars at New Smyrna, Martinsville, Oswego, Waterford, and Thompson. In total, the track amount is somewhere around 20. Stan led Stafford's prestigious Spring Sizzler in 1984, when it was still an 80-lap sprint. And leading with only a handful of laps left, was forced to the sidelines, stymied by a mechanical malady. Jimmy Spencer went on for the win, en route to a Winston Cup career and a spot on television after that. Sometime in the 1980s, Greger was 2 laps away from winning a Riverside Park 200 when ill luck struck again, as a flat tire put him in the infield, and future multi-time modified tour champ Mike Stefanik headed for victory lane. As for who was the toughest to race against and beat, Stanley will tell you that it was the Reg, John Reggie Ruggiero. If you were leading at the park and had enough nerve to look in your rearview mirror and you saw Reggie there, you knew you were in trouble, Greger said. If you didn't see him, it was even worse. He was either on your left or your right, looking for a way to get by. Ruggiero was so skilled, such a good judge, that he knew the finite difference between a half-inch off your wheel or 1 or 2 inches into it. His favorite party guy, according to Stan, was Bobby Pulvereri, who was here today. He'd bring this big tub with him, fill it with water, fire it up, and drop in around 80 ears of corn. That meant the party was on. In the latter stages of his career, Greger, like Flemke Sr. before him, enjoyed helping young drivers. When you would venture out to Riverside Park, let's say like a Teddy Christopher, Stanley would show them the best way around the park's racing surface. Teddy and I would go out together in practice, Greger said. I'd show him a few lines, where the car worked best in some places. But once a feature started, Teddy never liked to sit back. I try and tell him, wait 10, 15 laps, let the field thin out, and then pick them off. You'll still have plenty of time. That wasn't Teddy's style. Teddy always tried to get to the front in a hurry, and as Stan said, the only way that Teddy was going to get there in the first couple laps was over the tops of a few cars. After leaving the sport in 1996 and ending a career which spanned 27 years, Greger was never seen again at a local racetrack. I was committed to racing every Saturday night during the spring and summer at Riverside, and many Friday nights at either Stafford or Malta, he said. My life revolved around racing, family, and work. Now he likes to spend time taking cruises. We're visiting interesting areas in New England. Trips to the Caribbean have also been part of his travel agenda. Stan retired several years ago from work as a heavy equipment construction operator, a job that put money into his pocket and allowed him to have a long and successful career as a racer in New England. His heroes include his wife, daughter, grandchildren, and son-in-law. All of them are here today. Then there's his mom and dad, Shirley and Stan Sr., both deceased. My dad and my mom were inspirations in my life, he said. My father would often go with me to Stafford on a Friday night, and then he would always call me on Saturday afternoon before I headed off to Riverside. He'd always tell me, "You're the champ. Whether you win or lose, you are the champ." Well, today, Stan Greger is a champ in the eyes of many, and I'd like to welcome him to the podium as a member of the 2015 Hall of Fame class.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Really proud about this inductee and all the inductees that were today. This is my granddaughter, one of them, very young. We had a pretty good career, and Peter summed it up. I mean, it's so nice to see some of you old friends like Bonesy and the Danko brothers. Mario, one of my good buddies for over 40 years. I mean, Bobby Polverari, what can you say about it? 5-time champion. I mean, just a classy guy. But my family is here. Part of them, my lovely wife, Lynn, of 4 years, my daughter, Christina, my son-in-law, Roger, and my 2 granddaughters. And there's another one on the way. I think she's about 8 months. I'm running out of fingers to count them. I think that's going to be number 9. So we're going to stop at 10 or maybe 1,000.
If that's it, we're done.
But I want to thank everybody. And there's a quick story I'd like to say. Mario remembers this. I think it was in the middle 70s. He can probably tell it better. Me, Mario, and my old partner, Don Kinney Wimpy, we decided to go to Martinsville, Virginia, go down and watch the races. And we left, I think it was on a Friday night, and I'm driving, I think it was in my Monte Carlo. We're blasting down through Pennsylvania, nobody on the highway, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We got into Virginia, and the same, just nobody on the highway. Well, we come up to one black sedan car. The only one at 4 o'clock in the morning. Mario, he was riding shotgun, so I slowed down, going by this car, and I said, "Hey Mario, is that a cop?" He looks over and he says, "No." Bam, pedal to the metal. About 3 or 4 miles down the highway, I look in the mirror, you see the lights blinking in the grill. And I can hear him on the loudspeaker, "Pull over, sir." Oh. So he said, "License, registration, follow me." Right to Kangaroo Court, someplace in Virginia, the back roads. Oh my God. I says, "Damn, here we go. I'm gonna end up on the chain gang. Nobody's gonna know where I am. Mario don't give a shit. He's going to the races." But no, I think it was like $150 speeding ticket. But we had a good time that weekend. And Mario's been a true friend for 40 years. And he's a true good person. But I want to thank my family and everybody for showing up here. Greg, I don't think I can have a speech after you. I can't. But there's so many people out there. He mentioned all my car owners. And there's one special guy that I really like to thank in this. And this is a guy that would come with me every Saturday night to the races. And I know he's looking down on us today. And I'm gonna this is really for him. He was the real champ. And it was my father. Till we meet again, Dad.
You know, Stan, that is a sad story. You think with all Mario Fiore's money, he could have afforded for a radar detector. Stan Greger, one of the legends of Connecticut racing is in